Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Cricket8 Podcast. I'm one half of today's episode, Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, and with me, I want to say as ever, because it feels like it's as ever, is the magician, the warlord, Rob Barron.
What do you mean it feels like it's forever?
Rob, how you doing?
Yeah, pretty good, mate. Full of the joys of the season. It's very good of cricket to give you 0 hours a day off in the lead up to Christmas. It seems to get at its busiest the time where you want to chill out the most. But there you go. That's the life of cricket punting and cricket working.
Most definitely. Now, listen, the last time you and I were on, Rob, we did a Jay Shah Christmas wish list. And given that it's 5 days before Christmas, we still have time to ask Jay Shah to fix everything in cricket. So it was only fair that we did a part 2 of the Jay Shah Christmas wish list. And if anybody's listening to this particular episode, whether live or on the replay, go and watch part 1 as well, because we may discuss something about why didn't you talk about X? Probably did it in part 1. But also for everybody listening now on the live, we're going to give you the opportunity, and I'll keep repeating this throughout the episode, to put down something in the live chat comments that you want on your Jay Shah Christmas wish list, and we'll pick the best of those comments and talk about that particular issue right at the very end of the show, provided we haven't already discussed it. But Rob, without any further ado, let's get straight into it. Part 2, and the first thing on my list of something that I would like Jay Shah to fix now that he is in charge, or the key head honcho of the ICC, is the World Test Championship. Now, last week, or last time you and I discussed this, we spoke about a fund to make Test cricket viable. So when I say fix the World Test Championship, I'm not really necessarily talking about money, although you may say that's the way to fix it. I'm more talking about making the championship make sense. Now, Ben Stokes thinks it doesn't make sense. Lots of us, maybe you, maybe not you, think it's all right in its current format, although it doesn't really tally up because everyone plays different amounts of games. Can you make it make sense, Rob? Can Jay Shah make it make sense? Is there any sense in trying to make it make sense? Or will we always just have to accept that India and Australia and England get to play 5-match test series and the rest of us just have to make do with anything that can work around that? Can he make it make sense?
Very good question. So we spoke about the money stuff last time, so I won't speak about that again. At the moment, from an Englishman's point of view, England take it so unseriously that it's bordering on a farce. So therefore it devalues the whole competition because, rightly or wrongly, spoiler alert, wrongly, England don't care about it even in the slightest. And because there's ludicrous rules in it, which I do agree with, about over rates and stuff, it devalues the whole thing. The fact that in the last Ashes series, you know, the team with no brains against the team with no balls was basically that series last night. It was really fun. It finished 2-2, honours even. England will argue that they should have won, and they would have won if it didn't rain in the fifth. In the other one, Australia got loads more points than England did for that series. Right, That isn't fair. So that's a bad system of scoring things. Stokes coming out and saying I don't know what the rules are is a bad effort, because that's literally your job. You're the captain of the England Test team, and the best thing you can do in Test matches at the moment is win the World Test Championship. And England don't give them a chance of qualifying because of their laissez-faire, we don't care attitude to it, right? So that system's got to go. Not because of what England did, spat the dummy out and refused to take part, essentially. But it isn't fair if you can have a real humdinger of a series and it finishes 2 tests all, and then one team gets loads of points, the other team doesn't. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So, and that alienates fans. It kind of distances people. Like, ask anybody you know, including me, what are all the rules of the Test Championship? Nobody knows, right? No one knows. They don't make any sense. And when you've got commentators going, listen, it's just got exciting. If they manage to fit in another 3 overs today, they won't get dock points. Like, what the hell is that? So now you're being encouraged to not play proper cricket, and you're like, all right, well, let's just bowl spinners for an hour so we bowl our overs in this definite draw where it's going to rain, and we get loads of points. Like, absolute Nonsense. So strip it all the way back. First thing I would do, have 2 divisions. Let the other teams play in it as well. And then if England were getting relegated, they'd start learning what the rules were, right? If England were down the bottom of Division 1 and they knew that they had to play tests against Ireland and Zimbabwe and whoever else, Afghanistan, in the next division next time, maybe they buck their ideas up a bit and try and take it seriously. So 2 divisions is the absolute first thing I would do. It gives more exposure and more test cricket to nations that don't get many tests. You can say, right, if you have to have these marquee things, Australia, India and England, Australia, if they have to be 5 test series, cool. But for the World Test Championship, it's 3 test series minimum. The first 3 are what counts for the World Test Championship. These are the points. And you get X points for a win. And don't make it stupid, like the County Championship, where it's 23 points for that and 7 batting points for this. Don't overcomplicate it. Go, it's this many points for a win, this many points for a draw. And you don't get any points if you lose. And that's about it.
If you want to add as basic as possible.
Yeah, and you say you play home and away. You don't get extra points for playing away. It's you play an equal number of games because no one knows, right? There are teams that have played 10 and teams that have played 2, and we're looking at a table like halfway through the cycle or whatever. We all play the same number of games home and away. You all play each other. The cycle takes however long that takes to organise. And if you want to have elongated series because of money, crack on. But for the purposes of the World Test Championship, these ones count. Or you have points available for a test series and they're split up. So you can make the 5 test series relevant and you say, right, you are getting, there's a total of any test series, there's a total of, say, who cares, 20 points for the winner. And if it's a drawn series, you get 10 points each. And if but you can get points per test match. It doesn't have to be a complicated thing. What do you reckon?
So essentially what I'm hearing from you is make it as simple as win, draw, loss, 3-match test series for everybody who's playing in it, divisions. So by the end of the cycle, everyone has played the same amount of games.
I think so.
Right. Now let me answer this. Okay, so now let me answer this question. That seems very, very straightforward and very, very easy to do. Why won't it happen?
Money, TV rights, things like this. But
no, I don't buy that. I don't buy that because you just said, I'm using your idea because you just said you can still play a 5-match test series. Just the 3 test matches are what counts for the points, or you divvy up the points across the 5 test matches. So it is possible, unless we're going to talk about the influence of T20 leagues, it's possible for 3 test matches to be implemented as this is the bare minimum. And so that everybody just plays. All I'm asking for, do you know what, Rob? I just want everyone to play the same amount of games. That's the bare minimum in a league of any sport. The bare minimum is that everyone plays the same amount of games.
I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? But I don't like I've got quite a straightforward brain, and I don't like looking at a table where I love cricket and I've watched it religiously for 25 years. I don't like looking at a table that I can't make any sense of. And if I can't, I'm pretty much addicted to cricket, as are you. If it don't make any sense to us, it probably doesn't make sense to casual fans. I've been to a few test matches this year, as have you've been to a lot more than I have. How many times have you heard any individual in the crowd talking about the World Test Championship? Because it's 0 for me, 0 times. And people will say, well, what about the overrate problem? Which when you're paying, in England, you're paying a fortune to watch them play in test matches. We're not getting our money's worth. You can still do stuff about overrates. You can say the captain is banned for the next game. If you don't, and that's it, right? That's how Stokes is going to learn the rules. And it's like Stokes, I don't know about overrates. There's nothing to do with me. I'm pretending I'm injured every 2 overs. It takes 5 minutes out of the game. I'm pretending, just Hollywooding stuff. All good, Ben. But if you miss your overrate, you're not playing next time. That's it. That's the rule. And you would have to then implement. They'd start making Bashir captain or something when Stokes is on a warning. None of that. It's like your nominated Test match captain is Ben Stokes. If you muck up your overrate, you don't play next time. That's the rule. Or you get fined 100% of your match fee or whatever. It's some punishment that is a deterrent. because the punishment now isn't a deterrent for teams like England because they openly say they don't know and don't care. So it just happens, and all it does is devalue the competition completely. So the over 8 thing has got to go. That's not a rule. It's who's the best at cricket is what you're supposed to decide with a cricket league table. And then we get onto the final, which doesn't feel fair if it's arbitrarily decided that it's in a certain country before the tournament starts.
Hold on, talk to me. So I see, that's interesting because I don't mind the final being in England.
I don't mind it if it's in England this time and then it's in India next time and it's in New Zealand the time after. I don't mind that. Yeah. Because like football, the World Cup, you might get a home World Cup every 30 years. That's fine.
Yeah.
But it's not automatically at Lords.
But don't they have it? I've always assumed the finals at Lords, home of cricket, blah, blah, blah. But I've always actually assumed the finals in England because it's the only country you can guarantee that you could get fans from any nation turning up if they made the final. Do you see what I mean? Because England's so diverse, well, in certain places, and multicultural, that whether it be India, Pakistan, Australia, South Africa, England, literally anybody, and you would get fans turning up in England. But if it was in India, well, one team's just not getting fans turning up. Or both teams, if it's not India play. Do you see what I mean?
I do. And that kind of comes back to money again, doesn't it? But in the interest of it being fair, I don't think it should be in England every time. But I also think that a one test match final is a bit nonsense because somebody just could get amazing conditions. They could get all the clouds or whatever. It could be a draw, which that's really rubbish. Like any shared trophy stuff. The West Indies one was really, really funny recently, wasn't it? That league where they said you're not even sharing the trophy because neither of you bothered to turn up and collect it. That was absolutely fantastic. But it could either be, which is difficult to organise, but in today's cricket, you don't have to worry too much. It's either a timeless test so you get a result. And how many tests are going 5 days now, let alone 10? Like it doesn't have to kill the calendar, does it? Or you say it's best of 3 and you have a 3-match series. And fine if it's 1 each and 1 draw. I guess you have to share it. But at least you've got a better indicator of who the best team is, because it feels like that's the bit they're missing, right? The reason you have a World Test Championship is to decide who the best team in the world is, and at the moment it's not fair. It's not done on cricketing ability. There's too many other forces at work. So it needs to be fair for every team, and I think 2 divisions makes it really fun. And if one of the big guns does get relegated, then tough. Go and play against the other nations and spread cricket and get better. Take the competition more seriously. Like all other sports have that kind of jeopardy because there's no jeopardy of losing. And if some teams don't care whether they win or not, then what's the point of the tournament?
Yeah, what is the actual point? Yeah, exactly. I agree with you on that. Okay. Let's pause. Let's park that one there. There's plenty more we could say. I'm fairly certain that people watching this on the replay will have plenty to say about what Rob Barron said. But let's just move to the second. Let's move to the second point. On my Jay Shah wish list, this one's an extreme one, Rob. And you'll have to put your thing is. I'm not actually trying to set you up with this one, but it will sound like I am. I think we should get rid of all T10 leagues. I've got a problem with them, Rob. I'm struggling to understand, and I'm not actually trying to send this conversation in the direction you're thinking I am. I'm just struggling to understand, one, the sporting integrity behind some of them, but even more than that, two, what benefit they're really bringing in some cases. Now, just to be balanced though, Rob, I'm sure there are some cricket associations around the world who will say, listen, this is how we're making income for our cricket association. Dream 11 are sponsoring it, and therefore we get money into the country, and it allows us to, if people aren't stealing the money, it allows us to put the money back into the grassroots and cricket development within our system. So I get it that maybe I'm being a bit extreme in saying get rid of them, but I'm struggling big time to see the integrity behind them.
Yeah, well, there isn't any, and you are on a one-man mission to get me cancelled. I understand, and I can read the subtext.
I gave you an out. I can read
the subtext. So stop trying to tuck me up and say everything is bent. So I don't think that T10 as a format needs to die. I don't think that, but I think it should be that I would get rid of all these franchise leagues that are popping up, because the Abu Dhabi one and then straight away after the Sri Lanka one, utterly appalling goings on. Like, I've sent you some specifics, which I'm not going to say out loud because I like my kneecaps and I've got a job and stuff. But there's things like Betfair, the biggest betting thing in the world, the biggest market where everybody goes. They stopped offering it. They stopped. Betfair, who don't care who wins or loses, because they make money whatever happens. They don't put up prices. They just facilitate people putting up prices. Betfair stopped betting on that Sri Lanka one. They stopped offering it. Right, that's how bad it is, because the integrity of that website disappears if a team is 30 for none off 2 overs and you can back them at 10-1 to win the match. Do you know what I mean? That's a farce.
Yeah.
So I think the ECN does wonders for cricket. It's brilliant. It grows cricket in minor, at the moment, European nations. I would imagine they'll expand it. You've got cricket going on in Germany and Bulgaria and Croatia, and they are growing the sport. They have a huge integrity panel. They do loads of work. They send reports. I see them all. It is taken very, very seriously. They're allowed to dish out unlimited fines to players, and they're allowed to ban them from cricket for life, right? Okay. So the punishments fit the crime. It's a great product. And because they're growing it in nations where cricket is just becoming a thing a lot of the time, and there's loads and loads of games, right? So there's 1,700 games a year, I think.
Wait about in the ECL.
Sorry. There's 1,700 a year, I think, of ECN, 1,700 matches, and you couldn't have that as a 50 over or 20 over comp. I don't think, because the cricket isn't advanced enough yet, and you would get teams getting shot out for 10 and all this sort of thing. Like, I just don't think it will. I think the T10 product, they rattle out 3 games a day or whatever it is. 3 or 4 games a day. It's a very good product. It's all on YouTube. You can watch any ball that's ever been bowled in it. Great. Lovely. Love that T10. There's a place for it. But there's not a place for the nonsense that we've been watching. The Abu Dhabi and the Sri Lanka one are the most recent ones that spring to mind. All of those tournaments can get in the sea. Like, get rid of all that. And if there's nobody properly affiliated with it, like an actual cricket board that is responsible for keeping an eye on it, then get rid. And so, yes, I would bin off all of the T10s, professional ones, franchise leagues, stuff where people get paid. Get rid of it, because it's damaging cricket. It's not helping. We haven't gone towards international T10s yet. I would imagine they will want to do that. I don't mean Hungary against Iceland. I mean the major cricket nations. They want that to happen, I think. Again, money reasons. But I'm with you, mate. Get rid of all that other crap, because it doesn't help cricket. All it does is it makes people tireder and more injured for the cricket that actually matters.
This actually probably segues nicely into my third wish list. Actually, production, can you bring up the latest comment from Porgs? Let's see if production's still listening. If we haven't, production's listening. T10 at the Olympics, Rob. So as much as I'm saying, boy, get rid of T10, everyone's talking about that's the format that will allow cricket to really properly feature the Olympics. Thoughts on that?
Fair comment, because what cricket in the Olympics is about is getting eyes on it. That's what it's about. So I want to see Bahrain put a team out, and I want to see France putting a team out, and I don't want to see Puran scoring 250 in a T10 against one of those two teams. It would be better if it was an amateur thing. You could argue it would raise the profile of the sport more if all the guns were playing in it, and you ended up with, West Indies, Australia final or whatever. It'd be great. How do the West Indies compete in the Olympics is a question. I don't know how the West Indies would compete in the Olympics. I think if you had some rules around, like the football did, when it's like you must have a certain number of players under this age or whatever. I think the Olympics is just one of those where it would grow cricket. So good idea having it in the Olympics, and for scheduling reasons, it would be quite difficult to have T20. A T20 like tournament, and T10 will be easier. And for the reasons I said about the ECN, about having like teams that just aren't up to it or players that aren't up to it, T10 is a better format. It kind of levels the playing field a little bit, 10 overs as opposed to 20. So good point, Pord, if that's how you say your name. I quite like it. I quite like the idea of having a T10 comp, but not because I'm excited about watching it. I'd love to see the minor nations playing each other. I really would. And growing cricket in those places. But what will probably happen is we just end up with watching another one of these T10 comps.
Yeah, yeah, that's the danger. So listen, ladies and gents, we haven't finished. We got two more one more actually. We got one more thing for our wish list for Jay Shah, which we'll discuss on the other side of this short break. But also, just to remind you, those listening currently in the live, you can suggest what the final topic is. I've seen some good suggestions already. So if you want to get yours in, what's the final thing that we haven't discussed that you wish Jay Shah would put on his action points for 2025? But we're going to take a very short break and we'll meet you on the other side.
If you come to cricket8.com, you will find 8,000 live scorecards a year with visual representations of who is actually winning the game. Plus, we have live footage from some matches as well. Not to mention information on what the markets are doing. There is no place to follow this game live like cricket8.com.
And we are back. So, Rob, without any further ado, it's just as well we spoke about T10 just before the break, because it does actually segue nicely somehow into what my third thing for the Jay Shah wish list is, which is should we scrap ODI bilaterals? Now, this, I believe, was on the possible agenda of the ICC, or certainly I remember reading before the last World Cup, there was quite a few articles, possibly it was fake news, but there was quite a few articles and blurbs going around about maybe ODI bilaterals are a thing of the past and maybe we'll only play World Cups, or maybe ODIs will disappear altogether and there'll be no more World Cups. And then we had the World Cup. And we kind of came out of the World Cup with everyone going, no, actually, World Cups are still a good thing, so maybe we should keep ODI cricket. Where do you stand on it, Rob? Because the calendar cannot support the volume of cricket. That much is clear. We can't have all these T10 tournaments, all these T20 franchise tournaments, bilateral T20s internationals, bilateral T20 internationals, bilateral ODI internationals, and then try and say we need to preserve Test cricket as well. Something's gonna have to go. Is it ODIs, Rob? Should we be asking Jay Shah to put together a task force that looks at maybe scrapping ODIs, or are they integral to the game?
I think ODI is the best cricket, personally.
Okay.
I think 50 overs is the best format. I think 40 over cricket was really good at lower level, like county 40 over cricket was quite good. But 50 over cricket, I think, is great. And I've always loved it and I always will. So I don't want it to die. So that selfishly, I would have more of it, if anything. But I think at the moment, there are two things that matter in ODIs. One is the World Cup and one is the Champions Trophy, which is the kind of elitist World Cup that they have for the 8 teams that they won every 4 years, sorry. Both of those things should stay. The World Cup should be opened up. We've had those discussions before. What needs to get in the bin is the utterly irrelevant ODI series that are just shoehorned into other series for the sake of it. Right. Now, what they can do is, because what tends to happen is ODIs are forgotten about. Nobody's going to remember the West Indies Bangladesh ODIs that happened last week or whenever it was. I've forgotten those already, and I think I watched them. It's no one cares, right? No one cares at all. Fans from the countries don't care. The cricket world doesn't care. The telly companies don't care. It's all nonsense. What should happen is you have a window in the World Cup or Champions Trophy years where you can play quite a lot of. You have what happened to the Tri series? They were great.
Yeah, love them.
You have Tri series with finals with content. It means you can try things in the earlier rounds, and when you get to the finals or whatever, you start putting your best team out or your best batting order and bowling order and stuff. And rather than having the meaningless ones where it's like India just go, well, half the time they're playing another format at the same time or in the on a different side of the world. And India just go, well, we'll put the third team out for this. Who really benefits from that? Not really anybody. You get a bit of exposure to playing an ODI, but no one cares. So again, like everything else, you've got to give them context. So in a World Cup year, or a year out from the World Cup, why don't they have qualifiers? Because that qualifying tournament for the lower ranked nations is fantastic. The ODI ones, when West Indies are about to try and get through it. Some of those Zimbabwe, Netherlands, and all that, some of those games are unbelievable. Like that's a great competition because it has context.
Pause there. Would you bring back? Is a way around this to bring back the Super League, which unbelievable, like. Dare I say, Rob, because my view on this is very simple. I saw us play Netherlands. So by us, sorry, I mean the West Indies. I went out to the Netherlands to see West Indies sweep Netherlands 3-0, and that was an ODI Super League fixture. Fast forward a year later, Netherlands chased down 3-7-4, and basically knocked us out the World Cup. But my argument was always the same. The ODI Super League benefited the Netherlands. It put them in situations where they played tougher games more regularly. Yeah, they lost their fair few, but when the World Cup qualifiers came around, they were a much better side, and rightly, the West Indies got sent home as a result, right? Dare I say that the ODI Super League or something to that effect? Because the ODI Super League actually made more sense than the World Test Championship. Everyone
Yeah.
Granted, way of it a bit, but is that the easy fix for this?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's like I was just saying. It's context that people want. They want games to matter, and I think the amount of pointless, I mean, literally pointless, bilateral series that we have now that are just like people going through the motions, like nobody wants that. So give things context. Yes, have a league. Yes, have jeopardy. If big teams don't perform over a number of games against so-called lesser teams, then they don't qualify. And that's the bit that cricket is really selfish with. It just says we're having these teams in, and that's the end of it. There's no, and then obviously you have the geopolitics stuff gets involved with. India won't play Pakistan in Pakistan and vice versa, and neutral grounds have to be found and all this sort of thing. Cricket can get its logistical act together when it wants to, as you can tell by the India-Pakistan stuff that's rumbling on in the background as we speak. But when it actually matters, they do bugger all, essentially. So, yeah, the cricket can do this stuff. They can give these things context. I don't really know why we're having pointless ODIs cropping up. It's somebody has to tick a box somewhere, I guess. I don't really understand why they're doing it the way they're doing, but that is a good one for Jay Shah to get his hands on and go, right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make this, because the recent World Cup, I thought ODIs might die about 2 years ago. Everyone was talking about ODIs vanishing as a format, 50 over cricket vanishing. And that, for me, that would have been terrible, because the World Cup is still like one of the best things. It's one of the best things in cricket. Like, it's ask any player that's playing out there, what do they want to do the most is win the World Cup, right? So I don't think it can go. They just need to give it more context. But yeah, I think as ever, Mash, I think you're right.
Well, like I say, we've given people the talking points. Not everyone has to, certainly you don't have to agree with what myself and Rob Barron are saying, but
it's okay to be wrong, guys. It's okay to be wrong.
But there are definitely things to discuss. Listen, we're going to go to our last talking point of this particular episode, and we did promise at the start of the episode that we would let a listener pick the final talking point or the final thing that should be on the Jay Shah Christmas wish list. And hopefully production's found it. But there was a question. Here we go. Thank you, production. And thank you, Osprey, for this question. Big up, Osprey. Osprey says, we need more funding for associate cricket. So I know, sorry, let me mute myself. I know who Mr. Osprey is. We, in this sense, He's talking about associates, but Osprey is also a Scotland fan, to give you some context, Rob. So we can play more and grow the game. That seems like a no-brainer, Rob. Give some more money to the associate sides. FIFA's quite good at this. If I use the football context, or better, I should say, at it, in terms of actually having a developmental plan for the global game. So, for example, I can go to Jamaica and find a pitch that FIFA funding heavily played a role in making sure there's better pitches for football to be played within the context of Jamaica, as an example. Why is cricket so bad at this, Rob? What? Because it should be. If I'm a Netherlands fan, a Scotland fan, who else should I put in this bracket? Netherlands, Scotland. I mean, we really should be saying Ireland, even though they're a full member. I'm more talking the associates. Netherlands, Scotland, Namibia, whoever else you want to put at the top end of the associates. Should we be giving them more money, or are the people who always say fund yourselves right to say that, or find better funding streams? Because whenever I talk about helping West Indies cricket, I get a fair share of people who say, well, you should be better at marketing your sport and you should find better funding streams and da-da-da-da-da. Is it the ICC's problem?
It absolutely should be the ICC's problem, yeah. And I love associate cricket. I love watching it. I want more of it. I want other teams to upset the top table a bit more often, right? Which is why the World Cup needs to be open to associate teams. Like some of the best ever World Cup moments. Who will ever forget Dwayne Leverrock's catch against India? Who will ever forget that saw it? And it's still played now. That was an amazing day for Bermuda. They got a couple of early wickets and it was sensational. Yeah, they got stuffed, but no one really remembers that. They remember that moment, and it was one of the best moments in cricket history. It really was. He was a policeman, wasn't he, Dwayne? Taking this absolute screamer, and he's bigger than me. Like, associate cricket needs to be given a chance, and for that to happen, cricket has boatloads of money at the top, and it needs to start giving more of it to the teams at the bottom so they have more of a chance. And you said Ireland are a full member, but they aren't bloody treated like one, are they? No, they get the odd test every now and again for seemingly no reason. They get the odd test, a one-off test match against somebody's C team, and they're like, "Well, be happy with that then, Ireland. You're playing in the end of April in England or something." It's like, what the hell is that? Like, that doesn't give us any chance. It's belting down with rain for 3 days, or Murtagh gets 7 for 10, and you're like, well, we could actually be quite good if you gave us a chance to play in. So they're not treated like a full member. So it doesn't even look up. Basically, cricket looks after about 3 teams really well, 3 teams okay, and all the rest can sort themselves out. Is kind of how cricket is structured right now. They need to do much better with that. So yes, more funding for associate cricket, because that's how, like, FIFA clearly has its problems at the top end. But one thing it does do great is it tries to grow the sport. That is, everybody is on that page, right? Like, I was living in Gibraltar. I played in the Gibraltar Football League, and I was there when Gibraltar got proper FIFA status, became the, whatever number member they are. And it changed football in the nation. It's a tiny little country, Jib, if you can call it a country, which I guess you can now. It's a tiny little, it's like 2.5 miles across, population 30,000 or something. But the standard was like me and my mates were in a team, and that team now can qualify for the Champions League or the Europa League, right? And we stood up at the start of the game. This is me, I mean, look at the state of me. We stood up, and they were, proper referees going through proper procedures. You're all lining up when you're playing in the cup. The bloody Champions League music's playing and all this. They were given money to do it, Mash. And then money started appearing because guys that played in La Liga, Salgado I think was one, starts putting some cash in, and he buys a team, and somebody else buys a team, and all of a sudden, from us lot, and my wages was drink as many beers as you can in the bar after the game and free Sunday roast, right? That was my wages. Now they're getting cash, like they get paid, like it's a proper football league. And you can put, people are getting YouTube reels made up of them playing at that level, and then they play the odd game against Celtic or whoever in the first round of the qualifiers. Awesome, isn't it? And it's gone from basically a load of idiots like me playing to an actual thing that can put you on the map as a footballer. And that was because FIFA gave Gib the money to do it. And they said, we're giving you this status. Gibraltar is one of the richer small nations. They get boatloads of money because of where it's situated and some questionable things that may or may not go on with the government. Cricket doesn't do that, though. It doesn't say, hi, Croatia, we see your Iceland. We're seeing we're going to give you some cash to make a cricket ground, 2 cricket grounds. We're going to give you a better pitch. When I played cricket in Gibraltar, and Gibraltar's getting there in terms of moving up leagues, everybody played on the same pitch at Europa Point. And the outfield was gravel, and the pitch was a very worn AstroTurf pitch. And then they got some money, and they've changed it into a lovely facility. There are now 2 places you can play cricket in Gib, but the main ground is very good. They were given money to do it, Mash, so they can get better at cricket now, because you can't really learn how to field when the outfield is gravel, right? You can't slide and throw. You can't, long barrier is an absolute essential, but nobody wants to die. All this sort of stuff, right? So the money is there to grow cricket, and cricket wants to grow. Just look around Twitter or whatever, all these little nations that are piping up whenever cricket is played. They want to play. Let the guys play and give them the cash. Kohli doesn't need another house. He doesn't need one. He's got enough.
Can I ask you something, though? Is India... And here comes the people. People are poised right now to smash up the keyboard. So, is India both the savior and the villain? Now, let me explain. India obviously is where all the majority, seemingly, of the fan base is for cricket consumption. So, is the assumption, and that's great. I've got nothing against that. But does that lead to the assumption at the top level that, well, if that's where cricket's being consumed, that's where our focus needs to be, everybody else in essence? Do you see what I mean? So is there any, there's no need to grow the game? I'm not, obviously, I think there is, but what I'm saying is, all the while you have a certain market creating the large majority of the money, you're asking somebody to grow the game when they possibly would look at the market and the numbers and go, yeah, but why? We don't have to. So there's no kind of altruism there to say we're going to grow it just for the good of the game. Do you get where I'm coming from? Because ultimately, that's what we're asking for. Grow the game just for the wider good. Nothing to do with whether it can add a few more zeros on the end of a bank balance or anything. It's just the right thing to do. But how many years are we away from people realizing it's just the right thing to do?
A hell of a long time, based on cricket history. It's altruism's a good word here. So there's a guy, Maslow. You probably have taught this at school, Mash, at some point. The hierarchy of needs. Yes. And it's at the bottom, it's I need air because I've got to breathe, and I need food because I've got to eat. And at the top, it's stuff like self-actualization and all this sort of thing. Cricket needs to have a look at that in its own context, right? And the cricket pyramid. And what it does is it goes, well, we've got loads of money, so never mind. It doesn't matter. We're all fine. And, yeah, we're going to have this other tournament so we can drive a slightly bigger Bentley is essentially what's happening. And the rest of you can scrabble around in the dirt and be thankful when we let you play a game. Do you know what I mean? And at the moment, cricket is not incentivized. Is altruism doesn't do the people that are making these decisions any good. And there should be some sort of whoever's in charge of cricket, and now it's Jay Shah. The legacy, he's not something that's looking forward to payday every month, is he? He's all right financially. Yeah. He's not somebody that has to go, well, let's just think about how much money we can get from this. He doesn't sound like that kind of guy to me, from what I've heard. So his legacy could be, I grew the sport of cricket. And by doing that, it's we need to find a way of, again, I'm not getting into politics here, but we need to find a way to make stuff fairer for people. And we need to, if there's lots of people like football does it and gives grassroots football money. There's a way that it filters down the pyramid, right? And if you do well at the lower level, if you get yourself to the FA Vars or whatever it is called now, you know this with Bromley, like what they're trying to do. If you manage to get yourself through X number of knockout rounds, you can have a crack. You know, you might play Man United away. And there you go. That's your team set up. You get these stories every year in football. There's one of them, and it's like this club has gone from a load of lads that set a team up, bunch of mates. We went, you know, I played for a team like that, and it's like all of a sudden you need to find 15 grand because you have to have floodlights, and it's like, and now what happens? We haven't got 15 grand. You do fundraising. You know, you work hard for yourselves. But if you qualify for this, and this, you get a crack at that, and it's a great story. It's a great day out for the town and all the rest of it. Cricket has lost that. And they used to do things like county cricket tried a bit. Do you remember unicorns? They used to have a go at stuff like that. There was stuff that people did, and they used to do the village comp that used to be on Sky, the T20 thing. That was really fun. Stuff like that needs to happen, and give cricket more of a chance to expand the game, because cricket has very blinkered views of itself, I think, sometimes. And it's like, well, it's all right, isn't it? We're all making cash, but really, think how many. The thing is, lots and lots of people play cricket, but not lots and lots of countries. It's not like football. Lots of people play it because India play it, right? And Pakistan play it, and Bangladesh play it, and there's absolutely loads of people that live in those places. But it's not a talking point in many countries around the world. You know, when you're going on holidays, you're not talking cricket in many places.
But I think that's cricket's fault, though.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so for example. Let me give maybe this isn't a perfect example, and people think, oh, you two prattling on now. We're going to wrap it up after this comment. I'm going to say something. Rob's going to respond to it, and then we'll see you next week. But Rob, was it last year? Was it 2 years ago? The Rugby League World Cup was held here in England. I think it was last year. Anyways, the point is Jamaica got to the Rugby World Cup, first time ever in their history. And I went up to Hull to watch them play New Zealand. New Zealand, the world were the defending world champions at the time for that final. I think the Australians went on to win it. And we lost. We lost something like 64-6, right? But that moment when we scored the try against New Zealand was our first ever try in our first ever World Cup. And the people in the stadium, the Jamaicans who turned up, and obviously most of them from the diaspora, celebrated like we'd won the World Cup final, right?
Yeah.
When we scored a try against New Zealand. And I say that to say that, and because of that, rugby league in Jamaica, domestic rugby league now, has kicked on, right? We have a proper league set up, and no, we're not going to pull up many trees. And yes, most of our team at that World Cup was from the Jamaican diaspora who play in Super League or Championship here. But the point was, it's led to further development. And that's the thing I don't get about cricket. A team can qualify for a Cricket World Cup, and it has no knock-on effect on anything.
Right.
Like Papua New Guinea may never qualify, but will probably go back into the ether and never show up again in the World Cup. And cricket's weird like that it doesn't just naturally kick on.
Well, look, I went to a couple of those games, that Rugby League World Cup. You were miles away, by the way. It was 68-6, not 64-6.
Okay.
But listen to the fixtures here. Lebanon played Jamaica. Tonga played the Cook Islands. Papua New Guinea, who were absolute guns, by the way, at Rugby League, they beat Wales 36-0 here. Just listen to these names that I'm reading out. I went to a couple of the Papua New Guinea games, and their fans were unreal. And when you've got Fiji v Italy, Jamaica v Ireland, that's what a World Cup is, right? It's a World Cup. It's not what, and cricket were like, they did their absolute best to boot teams out of the Cricket World Cup. A lot of the fun of the Football World Cup is that first 2 weeks of it where you've got 3 games a day. It's like the best thing ever. And you're watching all these teams that you know nothing about. You're like, well, I've got no idea how good they are. Like, what do you mean Togo are playing in it? Like, who plays for them? And you're like, oh, right, he does he? Like, I'll watch them then. And it's like teams I mean, look at what Cameroon did since 1990 and slightly before. Like, Cameroon rocked up, and you're like, this is such a good story. You know, the 38-year-old centre forward who played a World Cup after that, Roger Miller, all that stuff. It's such great narrative and great stories, right? And cricket is killing itself, and that's what gets the world watching, right? When Jamaica score that try, that's what goes viral. Those clips of everyone going absolutely nuts, because it's awesome, isn't it? It's awesome. So it's extremely disappointing that cricket is doing its utter best to stop those stories happening. Like the Leverock catch is that kind of moment, and it's like, well, we're not going to allow crap teams to play in the World Cup anymore. That's what they wanted to do, and that World Cup should be expanding, not getting smaller. They've got the elitism of the Champions Trophy if they want to be knobheads about it, for want of a better word, but the World Cup should be open to all. And yes, you can have qualifiers from all the different continents, and let's see what happens. You know, that's the way the game grows.
Yeah, listen. Just in case anyone thinks that we're talking nonsense, we just had the T20 World Cup, and dare I remind everyone, West Indies played Papua New Guinea in one of the opening games at T20 World Cup, and we were sweating. So let's not try and pretend, people, like having more teams in the World Cup is a negative thing. But listen, Rob, we've said more than enough. Ladies and gents, we're 5 days away from Christmas. I know not for all of you, it's not necessarily any kind of religious celebration, but it is a holiday period. So from myself and Rob Barron, we wish you all very well as we go into this holiday period. There may be one more episode coming out or two from Cricket 8 in that time, but if not, take this time to, you know, be around your family and your loved ones, everyone. And myself and Rob Barron and all of us at Cricket 8 will see you very, very soon.
Merry Christmas, all.
Remember to support us by subscribing and sharing, but also signing up at cricket8.com, where live scorecards cover 8,000 matches a year with advanced visual details that tell you who is actually in front in the game.